Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. Today I am going to be reviewing Vampires, A Field Guide to the Creatures That Stalk the Night by Dr. Bob Curran with illustrations by Ian Daniels. So this is what the cover looks like. We have this very fine gentleman here, and I was inspired to get this off my library shelves because I thought that the topic was interesting, vampires. I wasn't really sure what else I was going to get into, although after reading it, I think I have more of an idea of what I wanted, and I now have thoughts and opinions. I am going to discuss the contents of this book, aspects I did enjoy about this book, as well as what I was more expecting out of a book like this and my thoughts on this book overall. But first of all, if you are new here, I do post new book reviews almost every single day, so if that sounds interesting and you want some reading inspiration, feel free to stick around. So I think the subtitle or this little section up here explains the concept of this book best: a field guide to the creatures that stalk the night. This is truly a field guide. It is a collection of various vampires or vampire-like creatures from around the world. The author has collected and put them into different narrative story formats, and they are grouped by type. So the author will take a type of vampire or a type of vampire-like creature in one chapter and then discuss related creatures, related stories, related aspects, as well as maybe how ghosts, spirits, demons, and the like are all viewed by the particular people that also hold the belief or the story of this other vampiric creature being discussed in the chapter. So the chapters in this are all about a different creature. We don't really have an introduction or any sort of analysis at the end, but we're just focusing on one creature and discussing stories, myths, folklore, information about the cultures it came from, all aggregated into these chapters. So for example, I'm going to use chapter 2. The chapters always begin with an illustration. This is by Ian Daniels, at least that's what's indicated on the cover. The illustrations are quite interesting. They all do tend to have the same style, so I could tell they were all done by the same person. And the illustrations do appear a little bit throughout the book, but primarily just this half-facing page of the start of each chapter. So Chapter 2, the Alu/Akimu. We also have the region it comes from down here. This is from Sumer or Babylonia. So the author just starts with a little introduction. Then he moves on to a little section on ghosts and spirits in the ancient Mesopotamian worlds. Then we have the Utuku, so this is a related animal, related creature. Then we have the Assyrian Ekemu. We move into that. So as we can see, we're just kind of going through various topics related to that broader topic or the creature discussed at the beginning. This is traits of the Akemu right here. And that's how the rest of the chapter will go. Protection against the Akemu. Most chapters do include a section that describes how different people protect themselves against these creatures. And then as we can see, we're immediately into the next chapter discussing the next creature. There are 17 chapters, so 17 different categories of creatures in this book that is discussed. So I think that overall, as a field guide, this book really works. This book doesn't purport to do any sort of academic analysis of vampires or the cultures they come from, the stories, the myths that surround them. The author is really just saying, in this book, you're going to get stories about vampires. And it's a field guide to the various stories of vampiric creatures that exist in the world, including many from cultures that, if you are from a place like the United States, or I don't know, Canada, Great Britain, Australia, I'm sure each of those you have a different aspect of vampires, or you're understanding different stories of vampires, so you're being exposed to ones from other places in the world. I think the author does a really good job of pulling from a wide variety of stories all over the world, so no matter where you are, you probably will pull a story in this collection from a background that you don't know or aren't as familiar with, which I really did enjoy that aspect. I think here in the United States, when most people think vampires, they think Dracula, they think of is his last name Stoker? Is that how you say it? That novel that was written. We think Hollywood, we think of the black and white films. So we do have an idea. Also more modern times, we think Twilight and that sort of aspect. But we have this idea, at least in the United States, of vampires. So seeing other vampiric creatures from quite truly a wide variety of different areas of the world was very, very interesting. And I think no matter where you are, you will probably have an opportunity to see a story or read a story that you are not as familiar with in this book, which I did really, really like. This is, though, truly just narrative stories. The author really is just discussing the story, some ideas about how you protect yourself against this, where the myths came from, the legends, and there's not really a whole lot of digging into the analysis. And as the book went on, and I can't complain about this because this was how the book was advertised, but as the book went on, I felt like I was looking for more of that academic analysis of what I was reading. So what do these stories mean? Why do so many cultures share the same belief about things like metal being protective against vampiric creatures? What were means to destroy this? When was this myth first recorded? How maybe was interactions between different groups of people influence and change it? I would have also enjoyed a section at the end that was talking about vampires in modern, maybe Western media, maybe even not just Western media, but what about other different media? I'm trying to think, groups in other countries. How are vampires shown in their media, in their entertainment? How is that changed? Where do they draw from for entertainment? How is this presented to people? And the more I read this, the more I realized that when I got this book off the shelf, maybe that was more what I was looking for. But I can't fault this book because the narrative stories presented were interesting, were entertaining, and the book doesn't offer deep analysis into different vampiric creatures. Honestly, the book would have to be much thicker if they were trying to cover as many stories as in this book. So I do understand that, and the book was advertised and marketed and shown correctly. So this is not really an expectation thing. This was me not truly understanding what I wanted out of a book when I got it out of the library, and didn't realize what I wanted until I was about halfway through this book and realized I didn't just want a collection of stories. I wanted a little bit of what I'm calling academic analysis to go along with the story that I'm reading, to understand really what I'm reading and why I'm reading it. So sometimes I find that I maybe rate a book low because of expectations. I was expecting the book to be one thing and it was something else. I would not even rate this book low, but I think I didn't realize what my expectations were until I was partway through the book, which I cannot fault the book for. I can only fault myself for. Actually, when reading this book, I was reminded of a book that I reviewed maybe a couple months ago called Shapeshifter, which I really enjoyed. And I think that I was looking for more something along that lines when I checked this book out of the library. I just didn't know. But I feel like this book gave me a good background of a wide variety of stories from various places in the world on vampiric creatures that will give me the basis if I choose to go on and read a book that has a little bit more analysis or deep diving into vampiric creatures than this one. So this was definitely a good book and a great place for a beginner to start. And I think also if you just want a collection of interesting tales of a kind of class of what maybe we should call monster, I'm not sure if that's the right word here, from around the world, this is an excellent book to start. Maybe if you have an older kid who's interested in vampires and you want to expose them to more than just the Dracula, Hollywood sort of vampire creatures, this would also be a great place to start. Just the narratives, not getting too deep into meaning or weighed down into analysis of different texts. None of that, just enjoyment of the stories and seeing where that natural curiosity builds and leads to. I do think it was a good collection. I think I personally, getting partway through, realized I was looking for something else, but I'm not upset with this because I understand this book was exactly as advertised, and for that reason, I can't fault it. If you're looking for a good collection of stories about vampiric creatures from around the world, either for yourself, for a kid in your life, or another adult in your life for that matter, this would definitely be a great place to start. The art was interesting, the stories were very various and diverse, and I think it was just an enjoyable read. It's a little under 200 pages, or maybe a little over 200 pages, so not too intense, but a very interesting read and full of very interesting stories that I think you may enjoy if anything in this review sounded interesting to you. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.